Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And I was just made aware of this actually today. A couple different people asked me about it. I totally missed the boat on this one. I was unaware that there was a debate going on between Vegan Gains and Dave Palumbo. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. All right, these two guys are going to have a debate. Apparently, it's my understanding there's going to be an actual formal debate. I guess they're going to do it over Skype or something like that. And of all things for them to be debating, they're going to be debating the cause of death of Dallas McCarver, which is interesting to me because we all know Vegan Gains is Richard. Actually, his real name's Richard. Is pretty anti-gear. He's got an anti-gear stance. Dave has an extremely pro-gear stance. Dave himself has abused fairly copious amounts of stuff over the years, admittedly so. So, what's interesting to me, and it's kind of like I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked when Dave publicly said that the anabolics and drugs didn't significantly contribute to Dallas McCarver's death, that they weren't the main cause. It was just bad genetics, and only because of his strong genetic predisposition did this cause a problem. And that shocked me. And I'm not anti-gear. A lot of people kind of get these ideas, and I do discuss things in the industry or whatever, that I'm just anti-gear. I'm not. I'm certainly not like Lifetime Daddy or anything like that myself. I'm absolutely not. Never have claimed to have been. So I'm not anti-gear, but at a certain point, you've got to look at a statement like that, and you've got to look at the sheer willful ignorance. And yes, I understand that Dave has a pre-med background, that he did get, I guess, a pre-med degree. Didn't become a doctor, and I don't know the extent of his background, but we've known that for years. That's been discussed, because he's been in a lot of publications, like muscular development stuff over the years. And here's the thing. I don't see this going well for Dave, and the reason for this being the same reason I don't get in debates with people. Vegan Gains is decent at debate. It doesn't mean he's right, but people need to understand debate means that you simply have to prove that your point is more believable than the other. Richard is very good at cherry-picking studies. He is very good at cherry-picking studies to make a point, to the point to where he actually has convinced large numbers of people of things that I think are incorrect, and he's successfully done so. He's pretty strong at this, and I think he's going to research this pretty heavily. He's going to pull up a lot of data. Now, here's the problem we're going to run into, and this is where Dave is going to have problems, because they're just going to talk about the thing that killed him in the short term. Killed him at age 26. When you start looking at the other medical issues that we saw in the autopsy report, the coroner's report, he had other medical conditions that probably would have killed him in less than a decade. The thing is, we can attribute these things to the drug abuse. Now, here's the thing that gets interesting, and Dave better be ready for. They're going to mainly, I guess they're going to talk about the osteosclerosis. I'm going to mispronounce that word. People give me a hard time about my pronunciation and enunciation. You guys don't realize I'm hearing impaired. And a lot of the time when I was learning to speak, I was completely deaf for about 3 years as a kid. My pronunciation of words tends to be off. Deal with it. So, that being said, here's the problem he's going to run into. Is he going to ignore the enlargement of the heart? Because if they're only going to deal with the hardening of the arteries, that's going to be a problem. Why? Why is that going to be a problem? As far as convincing people, hell, I'm going to do Richard's work for him right here. We know that large amounts of testosterone, even moderate amounts, reduce HDL cholesterol, right? We know that HDL to LDL affects hardening of the arteries. We know, based upon the newest data released this year, LDL cholesterol is the causation of hardening of the arteries. Elevated LDL, chronically elevated LDL, this is one reason ketogenic diets are dangerous in the long term. We know that it's not just correlated, that the researchers feel that they've got causation at this point. Heavy anabolic use, when combined with large numbers of calories, we always see elevated LDL. Any guys who use a bunch of tests, we see their LDL go up, particularly when they are bulking and in a calorie surplus, which is, 50% of the year for a lot of these bodybuilders. The studies we've got on tests show that when you start hitting, what, 600 milligrams, 500 milligrams, HDL goes down. We've already got a recipe for HDL going down, LDL going up. All right, your hardening of your arteries, there you go. Well, the same thing, we want to talk about triglyceride levels. We want to talk about all of that. What about all the insulin he was using? The medical report reported that he had a history of using insulin for muscle building purposes. You don't think that affects lipid profile? It does. It does. Absolutely does. The other big kicker that no one has talked about, the trend. The trend with the hardening of the arteries. Which anabolic out of the ones that we have human trials on, which anabolic has caused the highest amount of hardening of the arteries? I'm struggling with the pronunciation of that other word. Anyone know what it is? Nandrolone, street name Decadurabolin, contributes to hardening of the arteries. Way more so on a milligram per milligram basis than testosterone. They found tren in his system. We know he used a lot of tren. Most pro bodybuilders use a fair amount of tren. Now, see the problem here? Anyone know what tren is? Now, we don't have human trials on tren, but the closest substance we have, nandrolone, which is the same family as tren, 19 NOR compounds. Trenbolone is a modified nandrolone molecule. Nandrolone, even at low doses, seems to directly contribute to hardening of the arteries. Use tren on top of all these other substances in mega amounts. This is not good for the argument, especially when you factor in the tren on top of it with the hardening of the arteries. This is a problem. Because we already know his cholesterol ratio is going to be out of whack. Everyone who does tren, what do you see? Lowered HDL, elevated LDL. See it all the time. Everyone's blood work who's on tren. It's almost universal. You've got that to factor in. Then you've got to step back and say, okay, let's step back and not look at just the hardening of the arteries. He was on 10 grams of testosterone. His autopsy reports, when you look at the blood work, show, based upon my calculations, I noticed I said this out loud, a lot of other people have been coming up with similar figures, 10 grams of test a week. Anyone understand that a therapeutic dose is about 100 up to maybe 150 milligrams for someone whose testicles aren't working anymore? 100, right? 100 milligrams or 125. That number, think of that number, 125, 10,000. 10,000. Talking about 70 to 80 times the amount the human body can produce in a healthy young man. What world does anyone live in to where you think you can put 70 times the therapeutic dose of any substance into your body and not suffer health effects from this? Like, what even relatively safe drug can anyone think of that you could do that with? Tylenol? Well, you'll be dead in less than 2 weeks. You did that. If you did that with Tylenol, you would be dead. You would be dead in under 14 days. And it's a real bad way to go. Your alcohol. I mean, think of anything. Hell, if you took that much Benadryl, it might even kill you. It's something you take for your allergies. We're talking about a controlled prescription substance here. Someone taking 70 times the therapeutic dose, the medical dose, 70 times, guys. On top of that, taking trenbolone, stacking that with it, which has never really been approved for human use other than France for a short period of time. All right, we know that people's blood work goes to crap on tren. He was taking insulin, super physiological doses of insulin. I mean, again, everyone worries about high circulating insulin. That's why certain types of blood sugar issues are a major concern for cancer, organ problems, everything else. Taking excessive amounts of growth hormone. I know someone who knew him personally. I was chatting with a coach the other day, bodybuilding coach, in person a few weeks ago, shortly after it happened, who knew him personally, and I think he said that he knew the guy was using as much as 18 units of growth hormone a day. That's from conversation he had with him. Now that's hearsay, but considering his size and how massive he was in his early 20s, I don't think that's an outrageous claim. And I have no reason to think the guy lied. He might not have been telling the truth. Maybe, you know, and maybe Dallas didn't even tell him the truth. But the point is, we're getting a pretty good mix of info of the sort of amounts he was probably using of a few different substances. Same thing there, guys. A therapeutic dose of growth hormones, 1 or 2 units a day. See where we're going? Using way, way above the therapeutic doses of multiple substances, more than you would put in the body, stacking them together, combining them with things not intended at this point in time for human use. And someone really wants to say and try to create a logical argument, especially when we've got research on the different lipid profiles and what they do, that that's not causing this. Did he not look at the autopsy? And you want to realize that just the hardening of the arteries, fine, that was a contributing factor to his heart stopping. His heart was double the size of a normal human heart. Double the size of a normal human heart. That, my friends, is not the bad genetics. That's caused by excessive drug abuse. Excessive drug abuse. His kidneys were hypertrophied. His kidneys were enlarged. You understand, enlarged kidneys combined with all the insulin, the ultra high protein diet. All right, he was looking at probable kidney failure, needing to be on dialysis within another 10 years. Think that's just bad genetics? Man, this guy just somehow won the genetic lottery for being able to gain muscle mass and be aesthetic, but he had all sorts of other genetic problems, predisposition towards an enlarged heart, predisposition towards hardened arteries, predisposition towards liver problems, kidney problems. He had all these other genetic defects. Seriously? That's what we're to believe, then, that the drugs didn't cause it? When someone's using 70 times the therapeutic dose of a controlled substance combined with 3 or 4 others at way above normal levels. Yeah, back to the liver. Starting to see fatty liver, sclerosis of the liver happening, hypertrophy of the liver. People not understand that kills you in the long term. All right, the fact that he had liver and kidney problems, do you understand that's the filtration method for the body? That's your body's, what's everyone always talk about these days? They're trying to sell these cleanses. All right, that's actually a job of your liver, and then to a lesser extent your kidneys. The organs that filter out the toxic things in the body were damaged, severely damaged, in addition to 2 different cardiac issues, 2 separate cardiac issues. I'm sorry, but I'm just going to call it like it is. And I think Richard's going to own him. Dave is so obsessed with his own love of anabolics and his love of bodybuilding, I don't think he can admit that drug abuse is what killed this young man. It's tragic, it's terrible. But, you know, if it was anything else, if it was any other set of drugs other than the ones bodybuilders use, we wouldn't be having this conversation, would we? If it had been crack or heroin that he had taken so much of that he died, we wouldn't be having this debate at all, would we? But because it's something that the fitness and bodybuilding world wants to contest, it's causing a problem here. It's creating a debate that doesn't exist. Because I don't care how relatively safe a substance is. And that's the argument made. Look, if people don't abuse these things, they aren't as dangerous as they've been made out to be. That's a fair statement. You know, and I'll agree with that. I'll absolutely agree with that. But what we saw here wasn't just abuse. It was abuse taken to a level that was been almost unheard of. And when you take substances that we know when they're abused can harm your health, and you take more than any other human being seems to have ever admitted to that we can prove, and you do it for years on end, to stand there and say that that wasn't the primary contributing factor or the actual cause is not just ignorant, it's stupid, and it's deceitful. It's just flat deceitful, and it's deceit in the name of trying to push for legalization of something that has been demonized a bit unfairly. But these things haven't been demonized without cause at all, and that's the difference. All right, if they're abused, they are dangerous. They are dangerous when abused. And this is an example of some of the grossest abuse we've ever seen. So I'm sorry, but Dave is flat wrong on this. And I can't even picture what sort of argument he's going to come up with. And I really think Richard's going to destroy him in this one. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.